This is episode 88 of the Cafe Racer podcast for February 20th, 2016. I'm Crash.
And I'm Steven.
All right, hey, so we're here live with a special guest today, Jeff Vargen from Accidental Production. How's it going, Jeff?
It's going great, guys. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm a fan of yours. I've been listening to your podcast for a while.
Cool, thanks.
Thanks, yeah, appreciate it.
So I guess to give the listeners a little backstory, you sent me and Steve an email that had a link to a video that your studio shot of a guy over in the UK doing a little like mountain climbing and motorcycle riding and stuff like that.
Right.
Do you want to tell us about it?
Sure. One of the things is I was a fan of you guys. I've been listening to your podcast, and I'd made this film, and it had to do with adventure motorcycles. And I don't know why it took me so long, but it just hit me one day that maybe I'd have sent it to you guys. Maybe it would be kind of in your wheelhouse. So it was kind of fortuitous that I'd been listening to your podcast. You guys get me through a lot of gym workouts. That's how I get through your stuff. But yeah, this film features Andy Torbett, who's a UK professional adventurer. He does a lot of climbing and skydiving and underwater diving, and he had the idea that he wanted to go climb in the Italian Dolomites, and he wanted to go to Slovenia to climb a mountain called Triglav, which is one of the largest rocks in climbs in Europe. So he decided he also wanted to do it on a motorcycle. So he worked with Suzuki, and they gave him a motorcycle, he and his partner, and they rode these V-Stroms across Europe, and we kind of made the film. And the film's out there now, and it was a lot of fun. It was really a new world for me because I've been a climber for a long time, but I'm not a motorcyclist. So seeing the world through those eyes and watching hours of footage and putting this thing together was a new experience, and it made me want to get an adventure bike.
It's really, watching that and watching those guys like bivouac at the base camp and then summit.
Mm-hmm.
That was really cool.
That was really neat.
Yeah, did they take all their gear with them on the bikes?
They traveled fairly light, so they had everything with them on the bikes. And one of the things that is the trick is how much can you bring on a bike and what can you accomplish. So everything, when you saw them walking to the base of Triglav with their packs on, they had all their climbing equipment, and that came on the bikes. They didn't have a support vehicle going with them at all.
Wow.
It made the climbing a little more sketchy because they couldn't really bring all the equipment they probably should have. But Andy was a Special Forces UK guy in the UK Army, so he's kind of that survivalist mentality anyway.
Right. Like I noticed they had, I guess on that particular mountain, there's some rope in place already, right?
They actually climbed two things. The thing they climbed in the Dolomites was called the Via Ferrata, and the Via Ferrata is this cable that's bolted into the rock, and they climbed that, and it's a very popular thing. Unlike here in the U.S., where we're very concerned about lawsuits and that kind of stuff, the Via Ferrata was put up in World War I to transport goods and people over the mountains. So that thing's still in place. So people go up there and climb the Via Ferrata to the top of these rocks, and then there's a gondola that you can come down on. So they did that in the Dolomites. When they went to Slovenia, they went from the ground up, and there was nothing in place. They had to place all their own protective gear.
They were setting chocks and everything. It was pretty neat.
Right. Yeah. And that stuff can get heavy. So, carrying that on the bike. And then they rode the Nürburgring on those adventure bikes with all that gear on there. And once again,
that was a cool little, stop off. Like, while we're here, might as well do this kind of.
Right. I mean, can you imagine in the U.S. them letting us go drive around Indy with an adventure bike? It's like not going to happen.
I know. Well, the funny thing about the Nürburgring is it's part of the roadway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it would be like being on the turnpike and then like getting off on Daytona for a couple laps, then getting back on the turnpike. It's amazing. I've heard stories that you can take anything on there. People have like motorhomes on that thing.
Right. The footage we have that didn't make in the film is this long line of, vans and cars and supercars and Lamborghinis and these guys on their adventure bikes. And in some of the footage, they're putting along, and the cars that are passing them are hilarious. There's like families in sedans that are passing them, and there's a supercar passes them.
That's so funny. like having like somebody's family truckster on the Indy Speedway,
Right. It's like a plumber driving his van down the Nürburgring next to the guy driving his Lamborghini.
The video was really entertaining. It was really well done. What did you guys use for cameras on the bikes?
Uh, there was a lot of GoPro stuff, and then we had a Canon a Sony A7.
Mm-hmm.
So that was some pretty high quality video we had, and that was mostly for the interview sections. But a lot of the stuff was the GoPros, which is why you see, the quality is. You struggle sometimes with the GoPros and you struggle with the sound. So there was a lot that went into this film in terms of post-production cleanup, because making colors match and working with sound, and then when they're climbing in the mountains, a lot of wind noise. So we did a lot of work to try to get rid of that wind noise.
How did you record the sound when the GoPros were running?
Well, filmmaking tricks. Pull the curtain behind the Wizard of Oz. It's sound effects put in later.
Yeah, some of those shots though are really beautiful. Like the views they had when they were climbing in Slovenia and stuff. It was just like fantastic. I've actually had I've been to Slovenia before, so that was kind of cool. To see that.
No, it was really it was a great thing. The video is really entertaining. I've watched it a few times, and it's like an epic trip where you take this motorcycle trip and then you go climb a mountain right after.
Right.
In the middle of the motorcycle trip. We're going to stop and climb a mountain. Yeah, we'll get back on the trip. Yeah.
And that was their objective, and they only had it 10 days, so they rode a tremendous amount of miles in 10 days. So there was, they were pretty beat up and Andy's not, he's not like you guys. He's not a hugely experienced cyclist. He just kind of is a so-so guy. So that was an adventure. Just, we saw one section where he crashed the bike, and I think he crashed several times, and he just kind of keeps going.
Did you guys have a third rider with them, or?
No, we didn't. Part of the thing is we were able to get over there and shoot some of the scenic shots, and again the magic of filmmaking. We shot a lot of the places where they were going to go and where they were, a lot of those big broad shots, but they were on a pretty tight time lane, so they shot a lot of the stuff from them on the bikes, and certainly we didn't climb with them. There just wasn't that kind of time, and when you're doing a climbing film, which we do a lot of, it's very time consuming, and they were under a tight timeline. So for us to turn around and have to make a climbing film, it meant we would have had to climb with them, set our ropes, set our lines, do a whole different kind of approach to the climb. So they did it as we gave them a list of stuff we wanted them to shoot and a list of stuff we wanted them to ask each other and talk about, and then we brought all that footage back and cut it together. We've still got miles of it. We're expanding this. The film as it sits now is about 15 minutes, and we've been approached by European television to expand it to a full 30. So we're in the process of that now, and it looks like it might go to series. We might actually turn this thing into a series for European television.
Wow, that's too bad it won't be in the U.S. as well. Because I love those premises of taking a trip someplace and then doing something cool while you're on the trip.
Well, it's something we hope we can do in the U.S., but the United States is an interesting place when it comes to the media markets, and we are very U.S.-centric. We like to watch things in the U.S. about the U.S. So it's a series that we're thinking about bringing to the U.S. with a U.S. writer going to U.S. destinations. Europeans tend to have traveled a little more and be a little more adventurous. A lot of our work is, our distribution is a lot in European television, a lot in Southeast Asia, and so ironically though, almost all our films are shot 3 hours from my house in Yosemite Park. Our biggest audience is in Europe, and that's where our films are often sold. So
everybody's watching shows about selling houses in the U.S. and
right
market, or a family of girls with long dark hair.
Yep. We're really sort of infatuated with the indoors here. In Europe, they're really infatuated with the outdoors. I'm fascinated with your story, Steve, of the Continental Divide. I mean, is that
Yeah, I'm going to talk to you about that when we get off the air, because it wasn't my baby that I came up with. It was Spencer Hill from the Gear Dude, and we were working really hard to make it happen. I was actually talking to Chris. I was testing cameras this morning. I did
Hmm.
about maybe 150 miles, just testing some mounts and some cameras. We've got Cena Bluetooth that gave us 6 cameras for the trip,
Hmm.
and I'm going to be bringing a Zoom Q8 for the audio and
Yep.
the interviews, and we'll probably use some other backup cameras for like B-roll stuff. But we haven't completely talked about the editing yet, so that's
Hmm.
something I'm definitely going to have a conversation with you about.
Yeah, it's something you got when you're taking a trip like that. I think one of the things for anybody who's out there listening that's thinking about taking a trip and documenting a trip on film is you have to think about the film first and the trip second.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not taking a trip and filming it. You're making a film taking a trip, and it changes the whole dynamic of what you shoot and how you shoot. Because your worst day, when you're so dog tired and you do not want to shoot and don't want to pick up that camera, that's exactly the minute you have to do it, because that's the best footage you're going to get. Is the people who are just wiped out, and that's the human element of storytelling, and that's the most compelling part of it.
And one of the reasons I kind of came on was for that reason. So I'm not thinking about the trip, and I've been thinking about the shots and the storyboarding and the logistics of charging batteries and getting cards back home, and setting shots up and where I'm going to mount cameras, because I feel like the more we get into this thing, the more I'm not going to give them the discretion on how the camera's going to be mounted. I'm going to handle all that to get the shots that we need to get on every day, and then really my function will be that, strictly doing the photography. So
Right, right. You're the director. You can't give up that control. You can't let them, you know. And
yeah,
I'm thinking, just from a filmmaker standpoint, you might have to ride. They might go to sleep, and you might have to ride another 2 hours and set up and wait for them
that's
so you get
exactly
that great shot. You
yeah.
know.
I'm not going to be doing some of the tougher routes, but I'll set them up before they go. And I think this
Right.
vision that Spencer had going into this trip too was to tell the story of that adventure motorcycling is accessible to anyone. So
Hmm.
take these 2 brand new guys. Well, you can tell the story all day long, but if you want to do it in pictures, it's got to be done from a different perspective. So
Right. Right. And I think on High Gear, we saw how accessible adventure riding is. So they rode, very little dirt roads. There was a lot of pavement, but there was that one scene where they're in the Dolomites and they pulled in that parking lot. And there was a big sign that said "biker parking only," and it's so prevalent over there that everyone's riding motorcycles and experiencing the world in this open environment, not in cars. It was exhilarating. We're I think in some ways in the U.S. we're so concerned about the safety of every little thing that we give up some freedoms in that. We give up some experiences in that. And we're so afraid something's going to happen, even if nothing will. And I live in a world of adventure filmmaking, and all my friends are climbers and base jumpers and wingsuiters, and so they live in a very different way. They live in a way that we're going to go out today, but we're not quite sure we're coming home tonight. Um, our world in wingsuiting and base jumping and climbing is such that you're going to lose a certain amount of friends every single year, and that has happened to me every single year. And that's we had a film that we were headed to do last fall in the Himalaya, and the earthquake happened in Nepal, and that kind of made that film not really happen. Well, one of our protagonists for the film went over and did some climbing anyway, and he fell 1,000 feet and was killed. And so that film obviously is never going to happen. But it's just sort of the world that we live in, and to see that in Europe, just everybody kind of enjoying their life to the fullest is really exciting, because that's kind of the way all my friends do it.
yeah, it's funny because it's just the lifestyle over there is so much different as far as the relationship between work and vacation time. And
Right.
Oh yeah, that's a huge difference. I mean, like average Italian gets like 40 something days off a year.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I spend a lot of time in Yosemite climbing, and almost more than 60% of the people I meet are Europeans and people from outside the U.S. who just have this vast amount of vacation to come on and hang out, and it's it's great. It's we have our priorities a little bit backwards, I think.
It's
We
become that way. The corporate world. People start at an entry level job and you got 10 days off.
mhm,
That's it. That's crazy. And
right, and I think it breeds a level of dishonesty. Because what do we do when we need a day off? We call in sick when we're not really sick.
right.
If you give us the vacation, we wouldn't be doing this sort of covert. I get 10 days off a year. I get 10 sick days. I'm going to call in sick. We're just, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I love this country and I love being American, but I wish that we could take on some international flavor at times.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I've spent time in Italy. My family's Italian, so I know what it's like. And the thing I found out that was amazing there is in the afternoon when everything shuts down, everyone's at home chilling, taking a nap. I'm like, I was going a little antsy because there was nothing opened. But then I come
Oh
to
yeah.
how nice that is.
Right, and we're grinding away and looking at the clock, thinking everything's based on the clock.
Right.
So, yeah, and I'm that way too. I'm that way too. I grind away here, um, doing podcasts and doing films, and trying to line up my next guest for my podcast and the next film. I've got 4 films going on and a web series and a podcast, and you
What do you
know,
talk about?
my podcast called Accidental Podcast, and we interview adventurers. This week I interviewed a climbing photographer. Last week I interviewed a guy who's a big wall climbing guy in Yosemite. He's a Canadian, comes down twice a year, spends about 6 weeks in the spring and the fall climbing El Capitan in Yosemite. So mostly it's climbing centric. That's kind of who we're talking to: photographers, filmmakers, um, adventurers, skiers, those kind of folks. We're just getting started. We got 7 or 8 episodes done, and we got 4 more that are ready to launch. So we just kind of finding a new way to put our content out there.
Right. Yeah, this podcasting is great and it's growing all the time, and more people. It's funny how many people you meet that have no clue what you're talking about when you talk about a podcast. And
Yeah.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, how did you end up listening to our show?
Um, well, I heard Steve on the Podcasters Roundtable,
Ah.
and I'm not sure when that was. But when he said he was Cafe Racer, I thought, oh, I've seen that, and I've listened to you guys a little bit. I just hadn't really connected the dots because I'm a big podcast fan. I just scour the dial listening to all kinds of stuff, and though I am not a motorcyclist, I grew up around people who rode motorcycles. I grew up in San Francisco Bay Area, so a lot of my friends that were riding bikes were mostly Harleys, Hells Angels, that kind of crowd. So it wasn't the adventure bikes, but they had a different kind of adventure. Um, so I've always been around motorcycles and wanted one, and never got one. Probably luckily, because my mother knew very early on that I love speed too much, and I think if I'd have had one as a young guy, I probably would have killed myself. But now at 55, maybe it's time I get one and putt along.
I tell you, if you've got this adventure mindset and the people you hang around with are all doing these great things, to me, having the bike is the foray into that whole lifestyle, because it'll transport you not just physically but mentally as well. And I like, I was never a kid that was super athletic when I was young. So for me, being on the bike, I feel like I am, because I like going really fast, and I like, what limited amount of corners we have here in Florida. I like going to the corners really fast, and that's my level of adrenaline and excitement. I mean, I've been in the fire service now going on 35 years, and that's a different type of adrenaline. But the motorcycle, somebody said today, it's a really nice day to be on a motorcycle. Well, for me, any day on the motorcycle is a nice day. And
Yeah.
I'm not limited usually by weather unless it's lightning really bad, but I know Crash feels the same way. We both have that same feeling about the love of cycling, but you're never too old to start, honestly.
Hmm.
Point you in the right direction for a bike to start on, but with what you're like doing and being around Yosemite, and get an adventure bike for sure.
DR400.
Yeah.
DR400. I drove by the local community college the other day, and I looked out in the parking lot, and they were doing a motorcycle training in the parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my wife, I go, that's my next thing. I gotta do that. That seems like I gotta take one of those courses and figure it out and see if it's something that I can do.
The Motorcycle Safety Foundation class first. I think what state are you in? Are you in Utah?
I'm in California. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay, so in California, I believe in the entire state of California now, it's Lee Parks. Is that right?
Yeah, they don't use the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course anymore. They use the Lee Parks one. It's a really good course. I've taken the intermediate one.
Writing that down.
I don't know who does it up there. Like it's basically like contracted out to different companies. Like they buy the course material from Lee's company, and yeah, it's around down here in San Diego. It's around $250 to $300 for the like couple day beginner course, and you get to ride their bike and use their helmet. All you need to have is like long sleeves and long pants and boots. I think that's it.
Yeah, we could do that. I can do that. That sounds fantastic.
Of the beginnings of it, and then like Crash said, a DR400, something in that mid-size range that's off-road capable as well. You're going to get a lot of use out of the bike, and what's really cool about those smaller displacement bikes is you can even set them up for short trips with some camping gear and bags. And I'll send you some links to like the ADV Rider Forum is the kind of go-to place for information. That community's been around a really long time. The guys that own Smug Mug started it, and it's great for learning because everyone's already done this. There's probably a couple hundred guys in the exact same boat as you that started at the same time, and they advice.
What's it like when you guys ride a long way? You have to be in shape to ride the motorcycle because obviously you're holding things and your body's in a position where your muscles are going to get strained in certain ways. How do you deal with a long ride, like a 3-hour ride?
I'll start, and then Crash can give you his perspective. 3 hours is pretty short for me. I mean, I've done 8, 9 hours, 10 hours on a bike with stops in between, not continuous. The continuous ride for me is based on the size of your tank. So the bigger your tank, the longer you're going to be able to ride. In most cases, you're stopping after a couple hours to get fuel. Being in better shape always helps, especially if you've got good abdominal muscles. Like if your abs are in good shape, then you're not going to tire as quickly. It's easier, obviously, on the road, on straight road, than it is off-road. On off-road, you're using a lot more muscle.
Right. It seems like you'd be tense a lot.
Well, it's actually the exact opposite. You want to be loose.
Right.
You want to still have that control. So you're standing, depending on how bad the terrain is, you're standing on the bike, you're kind of holding the tank with your knees, but you're loose in the upper body to let the bike kind of float underneath you. But it does take a lot of concentration. It does take a certain skill level and endurance, but not the amount of endurance you would need to have to do other types of endurance sports. You see, I mean, if you look at a lot of long-distance riders, they're pretty big guys sometimes with some big guts on them. It's just where you're going to find your limitations are your butt. How long you can sit in the seat without having pain, your joints, shoulders, knees, wrists, the position you're riding in. Ergonomics on a motorcycle is a huge thing, and most people buy a bike and they don't really change any settings on it. So you can get a motorcycle and have somebody help you set it up so your bars are in the right position, your foot pegs, if they can be adjusted, are in the right position, you sitting on the seat a particular way. Crash, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, you've got your long distance bike is a upright adventure bike, and my only bike is pretty, not really aggressive, but a little more aggressive in terms of its sporty riding position. And yeah, like you're saying, like joints, like I get knee pain, like if on a 8-hour ride, like if I'm like, it's like 3 hours on, like you mentioned 3 hours, that's I feel like at some point years ago 3 hours stopped being a long ride. But you know, like I can definitely think about that. Like there, you know, I used to ride up to Northern Virginia from where I lived, and it was about 3 hours. And the first time I did that, I was like, oh, that's seems it's you know it's more tiring than doing that in a car. But at the same time, I'm less likely to fall asleep while I'm
Right.
doing it. But yeah, like if I'm riding for several days in a row, by like the beginning of day two, I've got this like sort of settled in joint pain in my right knee that just stays, but it never really gets worse. A lot of it is, you know, wind protection too goes a long way.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like no windshield is better than a bad windshield. Because with no windshield, you've unless you're behind a car or something, you've got pretty clean flowing air over you, and it's not shaking you around a whole bunch. When you've got a windshield that breaks at the wrong spot, it's like tossing your head around a lot, and your neck can get really sore. One of I think the final piece, as far as like being able to better endure a long ride, and we talked about this last week too, was like earplugs. The fatigue that you get from listening to that much noise for that long is actually pretty noticeable. My
Hmm.
neck and my shoulders and my head get really tense, and I feel so much more tired if I have earplugs in and I'm kind of in this like quiet little cocoon as I'm riding. I feel like I can go forever.
Right. It sounds like it's not a lot different than climbing. When I take people climbing who are just learning to climb, they're very tense. You know, every hold
Hmm.
is grabbed too tightly. Their body, and at the end of the day, they're just like, I can't. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I went to like a rock climbing gym one time, and by the I'd been there for like an hour, and by the time I was done, I felt like I couldn't like write my name with a pencil.
Right, and people think that they can't do it multiple days in a row, but it's if you're climbing correctly, then you're climbing with not strength but balance, and it doesn't require a tremendous amount of strength. It requires you to finesse your way up when you can't, because everybody in climbing is a different size and a different strength. And I have friends that are huge people and are really good climbers, and I have friends who are tiny little lightweight guys that are amazing climbers, and everything in between. Everybody can find their way. So I get how first getting on the bike you're probably over gripped and too tense, and that can be
Yeah.
physically exhausting and mentally exhausting if you're focusing.
It's really exhausting when you're racing though. And I've never raced, but I've spent some time on the track doing like a track day. And when you're going faster and you're having to move around on the bike a lot, that's where you don't see out of shape motorcycle racers. These guys
Right, right.
are top shape because it's very, very fatiguing. It's a lot of work. They're sweating a lot. They're really working on the bike. You're going from a tuck position to sitting up to leaning off the bike to, and not to mention your level of concentration. So there's a huge difference between getting on some 900-pound cruiser and pointing it in one direction and setting the cruise control than, coming into a corner at 150 miles an hour and trying to find your braking points and, get through the corner the right way. And I'm sure that's the same with the extreme world of like climbing and things like that, that there are going to be times when it's a little bit more intense.
Yeah, and I find the more intense when it's all done, the more relaxed I am. When I'm doing something very intense, then I can only focus on that because deviation of attention could mean life or death. So I'm so focused that at the end of the day of a really hard climbing, I relax and I feel very, very relaxed because my mind wasn't going in 20 different directions. I was just focused and completely relaxed.
Yeah, it's a really kind of zen experience.
Yeah,
You know, motorcycling's the same way. When I've done like I did like a 17-day trip, and the time I spent on straight flat roads was more exhausting than the time I spent on like really twisty, mountainous, kind of dangerous roads where I had to be on point the whole time as opposed to just sitting there staring at nothing.
right, right. In climbing, I don't really know anybody who's ever been killed on something really, really hard. Everybody that I know that's either been seriously hurt or killed is on something really easy because your mind lets down and it's something you've done 100 times. You take the rope off. I can scramble across this slab, no problem. And a mistake happens or a slip happens, and I've known some amazing climbers that were killed on terrain that is ridiculously easy.
It's complacency.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah.
the amount of people that get killed, like in their intersection 3 miles from their house, where they go through 100 times because you're just so used to it, or they're not paying attention, or they like Crash said complacency, but
Which is the biggest danger for you guys, right? Somebody turning left in front of you because they're not paying attention.
yeah, and
It's a pretty big one.
it happened
Yeah.
recently out by my neighborhood where there was a couple killed. They were from out of town on a big bike. Contributing factor was they didn't have any gear on. They had no nothing, no helmets, anything.
Mm.
But the car ran the red light. And
Mm-hmm.
the guy probably smashed through the intersection without even taking a second notice. Like, even if I have a green, I'm looking as I'm coming through the intersection. I'm looking for my exit. If somebody blows the light, where am I going to go? But even being as careful as you possibly can, or having all the gear on, or having a modern bike with ABS and all this stuff, there's still an increased risk factor. And I think one of our friends who has got a podcast had talked about some stats last year, and I thought they were amazingly high. The risk you put yourself at for a vehicular accident when you get on a motorcycle, even if those stats were true, and I thought it was something crazy, like 800 times more likely to get in an accident. Even if that's true, I don't care, because I wouldn't trade it for not being able to ride. It's that important to me. It's that much of my life that I'll take the chance.
Right. I mean, we were just talking about that in Europe. It's a 100% chance I'm not going to get killed if I don't go climbing. It's 100%. Right? But I'm not going to stop. I've been doing it 35 years. I'm not stopping now. So it's.
You really want to protect yourself. Don't walk out of the house.
Right.
Don't eat anything. Don't. Matter of fact, just stay in bed all day, and then you'll be.
Yeah, and then you'll die of bed sores and infection.
I really wanted to do that today. I got home from work at like 2:30 this morning.
Oh boy.
Ah.
Oh, you sound great. You sound like you're on the top of your game.
A little. I can tell he's worn out. Yeah.
It was a rush this morning trying to get everything.
Oh, it's that rough San Diego weather where you battle in sunshine all the way home.
Yeah, it was so bad. I mean, it was like, it's February. It was 50 degrees outside on the ride home.
Yeah.
Today's been one of those gorgeous.
I think I saw Sean Wallace post like that it's 45 degrees, and he's excited because he doesn't remember how to dress for 45 degrees, and by that it's like he means it's so warm. He's like, I could wear shorts today.
Yeah, you San Diego guys. I'm up here in Northern California where it actually gets cold. I think it's about 58 right now out there. So it
was like a little higher than our low last night.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
It was 63 or 65 when I left this morning, and 74 when I got home, and it's been a really gorgeous day. Beautiful out all day. It was a little overcast when I left. I did a long ride with the Motorcycle Sport Touring Association this morning, and the weather here is absolutely beautiful.
No rain?
No, we've had a lot of rain though. My yard is like a lake, but no, today it was gorgeous. There was nothing.
So Jeff, before we forget, do you want to tell people where to find your various things and all your things you got going on?
Yeah, we have a Vimeo channel called Accidental Productions. We have a website, accidentalproductions.net. You can go there and find access to all our films. We have a feature film called Assault on El Capitan. If you want to find what it's like to go spend 13 days on the side of El Capitan, falling in the neighborhood of 70 to 80 feet at a time, falling 500 feet cumulatively over 6 days. Our friend did a ridiculously hard climb, the second ascent ever, on a climb nobody done in 30 years, and he took his girlfriend up there, and we made that feature film, which is out and about, and you can find that on Amazon and iTunes and all the usual suspects. But I have, if you go on Vimeo and you want to see high gear and you want to download that film, I put a promo code on for Cafe Racer. Put in the code Cafe Racer when checkout, and you'll get 50% off. So that's a short 15-minute, low-cost film anyway. You'll be able to get that film for about $2.50, and you can get an idea of
And that was
Oh,
what,
it's totally worth it.
what's racing across northern Europe and through Luxembourg and Germany and going to climb a couple mountains. For $2, $2.50, you can check out our film.
here's a movie we've been talking about, and it's really cool. It's worth paying that to see that. And where can they find that? On the website?
You can go on our website, which is accidentalproductions.net. You can also, if you go onto Vimeo and look up Accidental Productions, we have a channel, and you can find it there. And make sure you type in Cafe Racer in the promo code to get 50% off.
Put that in the show notes. All
Yeah.
one, right? Okay, Cafe Racer promo, 50% off.
Yep.
All right, cool. High gear.
High gear.
So why don't you hang with us while we talk about motorcycles? You want to do that?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we have a controversy going on our little show on our website, and it was.
Your website's fantastic, by the way. I'm so jealous. It looks really good.
I'm going to tell you right now, Crash and I had absolutely nothing to do with that.
Yeah, we took the pictures that are used on the website, but that's about it. Chris Shockley, the guy that did our web design, did really good job.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm looking at it right now. I'm just so jealous.
Our logo
So
is
good.
Sean Wallace, which is phenomenal, and I'm wearing a Cafe Danger T-shirt by Sean Wallace, and Chris did the website, and it made it a lot easier for us to load stuff and do changes on it, but it's really cool. I'm really happy the way it turned out. But anyway, there was a blog post on there recently from a certain host of the show.
Yep, that was me.
Names happened to be maybe Crash, but he put on something about can you be metrosexual and still manly?
I'm looking at it right now. That thing popped up when I looked at your website, and I thought, am I on the right website?
So I tell him how this even got started.
Yeah, so I was riding, or I think I'm driving my truck. I don't know. I was coming home from work one day, and I was listening to the Cleveland Moto podcast, and those guys are pretty boisterous and outspoken, and it's one of the things I really like about their show. And they were talking about how the Progressive International Motorcycle Show was going to be having an old school barbershop in the event, and they started, which I get is kind of like a little bit much. It's a motorcycle show, but they're trying to attract the flannel shirt side part hipster crowd, I say, as I'm wearing a flannel shirt and have a side part. But they started kind of talking smack about how, about beard oil or about grooming yourself, and a couple comments were made about not not being manly if you don't smell like 3-year-old gasoline or stuff like that. And so I kind of just for fun, a little bit for fun, it got me a little bit agitated. A little. So I decided to write a blog post in response to that, sort of about I don't agree, and I feel like that doesn't work in every situation. I mean, maybe Phil has found the one of the few women in the world that likes the fact that he's grungy. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying Phil's not manly because he's not, meticulously grooming himself. I just feel like there's room for both things. They did go on a little bit and talk about the people that only want to look pretty and then have butt jewelry as a motorcycle, and I totally agree with that. That's weird. I don't get it. But I feel like it's okay to shave your face every once in a while or trim it up if you've got a beard, and to care about what your hair looks like or your clothes look like or how they fit.
Well, in all fairness, both of us have spent our life's career where we had to be groomed.
You're right.
Right.
You're
so
right.
I can't have a beard. You can't have a beard, right?
Nope.
Unless you're on a ship. And
nope. Not even on it. No beards.
No beards.
Like, yeah, I can grow a pedophile mustache, and that is it.
Yeah, and our ruling, we couldn't even have a mustache past the corner of your mouth, no sideburns, can't wear any jewelry. So I just grew up like that, where I was always pretty. My hair now is the longest it's ever been. I mean, I had a high and tight for years, but the taking a bath and taking a shower thing. And the funny thing was, is when Crash told me that this had occurred because I hadn't heard Phil's episode yet, I immediately texted Phil just to stir the pot and said, "Apparently you hit a nerve with my co-host." And he wrote back, he goes, "I think we hit a nerve with a lot of people." So he must have
Yeah.
calls, yeah. And
Well, I thought it was fantastic. I looked at the picture of that guy in the suit, and I thought, that's the guy I've lost every girlfriend in my life to ever.
David Beckham.
So, yeah, David Beckham. Is that who that is? So I just thought, all right, so I was like immediately taken aback because, I mean, I'm coming from the climbing world where a nickname that people enjoy is being called the dirt bag. People don't take, if you're on the wall for 4 or 5, and I know some people that just came off of a wall and they were there 26 days on the side of a wall. There's no showers. There's no grooming. There's no anything.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate grooming. I'm.
it's the same when you're on a motorcycle trip. I think Crash and I, when we were at the Overland Expo, there was only like 2 working shower stalls for like 6,000 people there. And I think, didn't we get a shower like the last day and that was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you kind of cleaned up a little bit.
Right.
You
Yeah.
Hey, listen, in the fire department, I can tell you right now, we've got back from structure fires where you're like stinking and sweating, and there are guys that like didn't go in the shower. Like, dude, go take a shower, man. You're not gonna hang out in the day room smelling like that. So there was some peer pressure involved. But as far as
Right.
styling and the coiffing and things like that, a lot of that kind of also fits into the cafe and vintage community because you'll see a lot of people that will have like pompadours and I can tell you right now that maybe at IMS having a barbershop was a new thing, but like a lot of the vintage rallies and shows I've been to, they've had like a local barber there setting up a booth doing vintage quote unquote hairstyles. But
That's cool. That's cool. Kind of a James Dean thing going on.
yeah, if you've noticed, there's a lot of these kind of, I don't even know what you'd call them, hipster barbershop, Crash. I don't know. Go in there and it's diamond plate, and the guys they got toolboxes for their hair stuff, and they're all tatted up and
Yeah. There's a couple of different flavors of that. Like I recently like switched barbershops to a place down here real close to me, and you go in and the walls are all made out of like reclaimed wood. There's like all kinds of like knickknacks, like vintage signs and all sorts of stuff like that around the place, and there's beer on tap. That you can have with your haircut.
Wow.
Kind of cool, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a long way from when we were kids, at least when I was a kid, going to the barbershop for the sole reason it's the only place you could ever see Playboy magazine. Because you could just sit there and wait, and they had a stack of them, and you'd put the comic book over the top, and the barber kind of turned the other way, didn't even pay attention.
Yeah, that wasn't the shop I went to, but my grandfather used to take me to his local barber, and it was like this old school Italian dude, that didn't matter what kind of haircut you wanted, you got whatever he was giving you. Right?
Flavor of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, but it was funny, Chris. I didn't tell you this, but I got a couple phone calls. Like people were like, "Did you write that? Because you never comb your hair." I'm like, "No, it wasn't me. I didn't write that."
I guess I should have like signed it or something.
There's Crash on there. People just didn't read it. They thought
Yeah.
They're like, "When was the last time you did anything with your?" I mean, look, it's just like a complete mess, but it's usually helmet head too. But it was good, and it was kind of thought provoking because the nice thing about it was I got a bunch of phone calls, which meant people actually read it. So
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to talk about was gear.
Yeah.
The laser Monaco helmet. I went back and reread your original piece on it, and I'm going to write a follow-up to it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, 'cause the experience I have is very similar, but a little bit different when it comes to the fit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
I actually just got a piece of gear um, in the mail a couple days ago, not yesterday, a couple days ago. Um, I got a jacket from Revit. I got it at a discount through their like employee purchase program. Like so they sort of like uh, as a favor to the show, so that I would talk about it.
Mhm.
Because we're a little smaller than their like we're going to give you free gear budget kind of would allow for, but they did let me purchase some stuff at a really steep discount, and it's the Revit Flatbush vintage jacket. We should put a link to it in the show notes or something. It's it's brand new. I haven't broken it in yet hardly at all. I've worn it 2 or 3 times. I think 2 days to work and that's it. So very very initial first impressions. But there's two different versions of this jacket. There's the Flatbush and then the Flatbush vintage, and the only difference is the way the leather's dyed. One's they're just different kinds of leather. So the one they're going to wear a little differently. And my initial first impression was that in the vintage one, which is designed to look more distressed more quickly, some of the little touches don't really like do it for me. Like I'm super picky about jackets, and the little around the sleeve on the cuff where the leather is like folded over, on the right side was like kind of almost fringy, like it wasn't cleanly cut, and then the other side it was very, very cleanly cut, and I was kind of a little disappointed. I'm just going to go back with like a pair of fingernail trimmers and like clip off all the little rough edges, but uh, other than that, it's got a cool little thing. There's a snap in the very back so that you can attach it to any pair of pants that have belt loops. Um, it's got like basically a little elastic cord with a snap, so that just goes down around your belt loop or around your belt, so that it keeps the jacket and pants together, so they don't ride up when you're riding. The I've been riding around with this brown leather Dainese perforated jacket for a while, a couple of years now, and the biggest difference between these two jackets, they're both brown leather. The Dainese is more of a very understated, mellow sport bike jacket. The back end comes down really far, so when you're in a tuck, it's still covering your butt. And the styling of the jacket is still it's cut like a sport bike jacket. It's very form-fitting. The cuffs, when you zip them down, are right tight around your wrists. It's got like a black metal triangular piece on each of the shoulders as like kind of additional armor protection. The Dainese is much more kind of urban scooter, like versatile styling. It's very simple. There's just like a single little outside pocket, classic, cut to the jacket, and the cuffs. It's like I said, I'm real picky. The cuffs are a little bit bigger around your wrists, so as you're riding, a little more air gets up inside, which can be a good or a bad thing depending on whether you're hot or cold. But yeah, I'll definitely be talking about it more as I wear it. Right now, like going to and from work with a backpack on, that little snap for your belt really drives me crazy because it's right on my spine. I'm probably gonna figure out something else as far as like maybe just strapping the backpack down to the back of the bike or something, just so that I'm not getting irritated by that thing. But otherwise, the fit's really good. If you Revzilla.com has a good video that talks about their videos are really good. That talk about the guy that's wearing it, how much he weighs and what size he is. I've got a size 48, which is the European 48. So I'm normally a European size 50. I've got a 40-inch chest. I'm 6 feet tall, and the sleeves are the tiniest bit shorter than I would like them to be, but it's not enough to really call an issue. It's just the jacket's cut a little different.
Not a deal killer, right?
No, not at all. It's $500 new. I feel like if I had spent $500, I'd be a little curious. Right now, first impression, I would be thinking about returning it.
Really?
but I don't know if I would actually return it. Do you know what I mean? Like I'd be right on the edge. I need a little more time with it to make up my mind. Personally, I think I would probably prefer the regular Flatbush, not the vintage one that has, because the regular one appears to have a little. It's a different leather, so I feel like I might like the look or the feel of it a little better, but I might not. I'm not really sure.
What's the armor like in it?
So it's got the SAS Tech, which is Revit's like proprietary armor. It's kind of like the D30. It's a little bit soft, but it's exactly the same armor that's in my other Revit jacket actually, and it's got a back protector pocket. Too bad it's not the same size back protector pocket as my other Revit jacket. Otherwise, I would just move the back protector over. But yeah, it's a nice. I personally I feel like if you want a jacket, like if you ride a scooter or a standard or even a cruiser or a vintage style bike, and you want just a simple, like very simple leather jacket that doesn't have a lot of frills, not a lot of embellishment, doesn't make you look like a Power Ranger, it's not a bad way to go. And I'll have to ride with it more to figure it out.
So Jeff, kind of just giving you an idea of what we're talking about here is motorcycle gear in general, especially jackets, can be very purpose-built. So when Crash is talking about something that's built for a sport bike, when you're in a tuck position on a sport bike, some of the jackets, the sleeves are pre-formed in that tuck position. So in the natural position is with your arms bent on the sleeves. You hang the jacket up and you kind of see the sleeves are sewn in that bent position. You can get motorcycle gear that's specific for a lot of different types of riding, and there are jackets that are 3-season jackets, 4-season jackets, 2-season jackets. Same with pants, and the cost is you can go to a discount place, get a jacket for $99. You can spend $1,000 for a jacket.
But they provide protection for you as well. It's not just a jacket. There's some safety components to these coats
well,
right?
Oh yeah.
Even that varies by price too, because there's a minimum standard for armor, and it's just what they call hard armor. So these are like molded cups for like the shoulders and the elbows, and like Crash said, his particular jacket didn't come with a back protector. There's a pocket. Did it come with foam, Crash, for the back?
Nope. No. I've noticed a lot of the manufacturers have been going away from having even like a foam protector in there because they're so ineffective anyway. Right. It's almost just a waste.
Right. So what you'll see is different levels of back protectors and even different levels of armor. I recently got and Crash and I looked at this when we were in Arizona, but Badlands Pro Suit, the motorcycle that I have by KTM, it's got they had contracted with Climb. Climb started off making snowsuits for like lift operators in the snow areas, and they make some skiing gear and they make snowmobiling gear, but they also make motorcycling gear and dirt bike gear. But the Badlands Pro is a pretty heavy-duty suit, and it's made with Gore-Tex and Cordura Talisman and all these really high-tech fabrics, and the armor in it is pretty extensive too. It uses D30, which is a phase change armor, which is really neat. I don't know if you've ever seen this before or if they use it in any other type of extreme sports, but that D30 in it, kind of a liquidy state, it almost looks like silly putty. Mm. And they do a demo where they take a piece and they stretch it out and they put it over somebody's hand and they hit it with a hammer real hard. And when it impacts, the molecules align in it and it becomes instantly hard. So when you put it in armor, you can move. It's very flexible. Like the back protector is really super flexible. There's a chest protector. Dow Corning's got a real thin layer of that stuff in the chest, and it just, that's where the cost starts to increase too. And then using YKK waterproof zippers. The other thing is the jacket that Chris is talking about is more than likely not waterproof. Correct, Josh?
Correct.
Okay.
There's no thermal lining. It's not waterproof. It's a pretty basic leather jacket, and that's kind of why I'm a little on the fence about price. I remember when this jacket came out, a couple years ago, you and I were talking about, Revit's urban line of jackets, and there was a couple of them that we were really looking at. and kind of excited about. And one of them was a jacket called the Red Hook jacket, and I ordered one of those at full price about a year ago, and it didn't fit me right, and the color just wasn't doing it for me. I didn't want a black one, and the brown was a brown that looked good in pictures, but in person I was not a fan of.
Like brown, you said, kind of
What's that?
like a reddish brown.
It was a lot lighter. I wanted something like a really dark chocolatey kind of brown, and this was a lot lighter. It was almost tan.
Mm.
And the fit wasn't quite right. If I had gotten the right, if I'd returned it and got the right size, I'm sure it would have been good. But then with this other jacket, now that they've got the vintage one out, I figured I'd give it a shot, and I'm pretty satisfied with it overall. I know that I probably don't sound like it. I'm really trying to think of like would I have been satisfied at $500, and I'm not sure yet.
Have you ever looked at the Aerostitch leather jackets? I think it's called a Transit, maybe.
Oh, the transit suit.
Yeah.
I have looked at them. I'm hesitant to buy anything from Aerostitch, in terms of their jackets or suits or whatnot, because I know that it's really hit or miss, but everybody's said to me that they're kind of cut for the more like larger chested, shorter armed American build.
Well, you can. I mean, Revit's got I don't know on the Transit, but like on the Roadcrafter, you send your measurements in. I mean, not Revit.
Oh yeah, Aerostitch, yeah.
The Transit, Jeff, is a leather jacket that's waterproof, so it kind of serves all purposes. They make a suit, they make leather pants as well too, and they've kind of got more of a cafe look to them than the the normal motorcycling type gear. But there's so many options out there. It's just
one of the things I love about your guys' podcast is I love all the gear talk. Because even though I don't get it, I'm a gear geek. I got tons of climbing stuff, and I love all the intricacies of the little things to make the sport be what it is. I really learn a lot from you guys because, like I said, I don't really know the intricacies about the little stuff of motorcycles, but this is the stuff that really makes it interesting to me. Different kinds of jackets, different kinds of boots, different kinds. The earplugs. I listened to your podcast on earplugs, and I was like, that's fantastic.
And I think Crash has even got a better attention to detail than I do, maybe because of his background in electronics. But yeah, we tend to pick stuff apart too. But
yeah,
and it's funny because a lot of times we'll find something that we think we're not going to like, and then once we've tried it and used it for a while, we find out, oh yeah, this really did work pretty good.
I listened to your podcast when you guys were talking about tires, and I'm like, that was really compelling to me that there's all these different, and of course I'm a big race fan. I watch NASCAR and Formula One, and I'm all into the tire geek stuff about compounds and all that stuff. And so, of course, it made sense that you would have that in motorcycles. It just never occurred to me not being a rider.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking now, like in the closet, there's 4 motorcycle jackets, and they're all quite different. I mean, there's Jessica's jacket, which is made of lambskin and or sheepskin, one of those. I don't know. At what point does it mean lambskin, sheepskin, whatever? It's the same animal. It's a different age. Anyway, and then the armor in it is made of silicone. It's a very comfortable, very flexible, but much less protective armor. And then there's like the jacket I just got, which is kind of the next step up. It's made of cowhide, 1.1 millimeter cowhide. So in theory, I could go down in this jacket multiple times. If Jess and I are riding and we crash, that jacket she's got hopefully will protect her well enough for one crash, and then probably be done. Like that jacket is probably not going to be usable after that. Whereas my 2 leather jackets, I could probably crash a couple of times in those, and the exterior is going to survive. I crashed in a leather jacket 6 or 7 years ago, and you couldn't even tell. Like I didn't go down on the road. I went, kind of fell down in the grass and gravel, and like I said, you couldn't even tell. Like the jacket looked just fine, and I got up with basically no scratches at all, and a broken thumb, but.
I came to the conclusion too when we're talking about there's you notice Jeff, Chris mentioned something about no liner. So a lot of jackets come where they're not waterproof, but they come with usually two liners, a rain liner, what they call a waterproof liner that you wear zipped in the inside of the jacket, and then a thermal liner as well for when it gets colder. And I've found I've had both types because the other type of jacket is where it's a shell, where the shell is inherently waterproof and it's got waterproof zippers for the pockets and things like that. And then it doesn't come with any types of liners at all. You would wear base layers, a medium weight or lightweight base layer, and depending on how cold it is, you're just going to layer up. You don't have to worry about a rain liner because the jacket's inherently waterproof. The shells tend to be more expensive because of the materials they're made out of, especially Gore-Tex. I found that going back and forth, I prefer the shell. The experience I'm having with the Climb Badlands Pro was very much like the Aero Stitched Darien. And I tell you, Crash, having gotten rained on the other day wearing the Olympia stuff, and then having the jacket completely saturated with water, taking that jacket, after it stopped raining, I took the rain liners out. I couldn't wear the jacket again because it was completely soaked.
Yep.
So I had to keep the rain liners in until the jacket dried out, and the rain liners aren't breathable. So now you're in this kind of a sauna type situation. But I think going back to the shell type is where I'm gonna live comfortably. Especially for
Yeah,
ventilation.
I definitely can relate to that. I mean, just my Revit textile jacket is one of those ones that has it's not quite the shell situation where you're talking about, where the Gore-Tex layer and the outer layer of the jacket are bonded to each other. Like my Legacy jacket is two separate pieces of material inside the jacket, and so the exterior of the outside of the jacket holds a bunch of water, and then the interior is perfectly dry, which is great, when you want to be dry. But it just sucks that you walk around with like a water bag hanging around you.
Right. This thing I got rained on it the other day, and it's eating off of it like a duck. It's not holding any water at all, and I'm sure that's that DWR that's kind of baked into the material. I don't know. We'll see. It's not as stiff as I thought it was going to be when I tried it on in Arizona. I'm sorry I didn't go for it back then, but this is the Climb or the KTM branded version of the suit, and I picked it up for like next to nothing because somebody had got it with a bike and didn't want it.
Yeah, they're doing Honda's the Honda Transalp. I mean, not Transalp, Africa Twin. They have a Honda Africa Twin branded set of jacket and pants and stuff now too.
That's really cool. Yeah, Jeff Climb's like kind of one of the premier makers here, and it's really neat stuff. You pay for it too. It's expensive. The jackets are the new version of the Badlands, probably around $900.
Is it worth it?
That's subjective. You'll probably have some people say no, it's ridiculous paying that much. But knowing how some jackets will completely come apart when you slide on the ground, for me, I think it's worth it, especially with the D3O armor and all the features you get in it. There's a kidney belt built into it. You can put a hydration bladder in. There's a rabbit pocket on the back. All the pockets are waterproof.
That sounds pretty high tech and pretty developed. I mean, sometimes I think, I've gone through the phase where I bought cheap gear because it was cheap, and you pay the price for it. You end up buying, if I just bought something good, it's going to last me 3 times as long, and I ended up buying 3 of the things, and it's more expensive than if I bought one of the good things.
Yep, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Especially in motorcycle gear. Now, helmets, again, helmets are really kind of a personal thing, and most manufacturers will tell you that the EPS liner in a helmet's good for about 5 years. So if you buy a $500 helmet and you amortize that out to you spend $100 a year on a helmet, or you buy a $99 helmet, if they're carrying the same rating, then it comes down to things like comfort, fit, wind noise, the visor, things like that.
Mm-hmm. Which are significant. It's significant.
There's no doubt.
Features.
If the helmet's uncomfortable, you just don't want to wear it. And it
right.
make that 3-hour trip a lot longer than it would if you don't even tell your helmet's on, especially when the weight of a helmet too. But depending on what the shell's made out of. But speaking of longevity of a product, and something I wanted to mention is I recently found a company called MX Boot Resoling or mxbootrepair.com. And I'm an AMA member, and I got an email the other day saying, hey, we're offering a discount of 15% to get your boots resoled. Now, originally I'm thinking, motocross boots. But I have a pair of CD On-Roads. CD's an Italian shoe and boot manufacturer. They started off making cycling shoes, and now they make motorcycle boots, and they make killer off-road and then street boots. But the On-Roads were their version of a rain boot, kind of. It used a material called Sympatex that was their version of Gore-Tex. And it had a big lug sole on it, and it had like 5 Velcro straps along the side of the boot. Well, mine were purchased in 2002, and they were the soles were gone on them, and all the Velcro had come apart. And I called this guy from MX Boot Repair and said, "Hey, can you fix these?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I sent them off to California. They came back. Crash, I got to tell you, they look brand new.
Nice.
New soles on them, and he didn't just like sew the Velcro back on the tabs. The tabs are completely new. So they're completely new straps on there, and I'll have to get some pictures and throw them up on the website, and I'll put a link in the show notes. But if you're an AMA member, they do periodic discounts. I got a 15% discount for being an AMA member. And that now talk about product longevity. There's no reason why those boots won't go another 14 years.
Yeah, I wearing a pair of climbing boots that I bought in 1984, 85. And I've had them resold 5, 6, 7 times. And I'm still wearing them. They're still my go-to shoes when I just want to wear something all day long. They're super comfortable, and technology and climbing rubber has come so far that I can have this really comfortable shoe and put the most advanced climbing rubber on them and still have the best of both worlds.
They did that.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
No, that's pretty neat.
And it's also kind of helped, for me, it helps not put more stuff on the planet. I'm always like, can I repurpose things? Can I use something again rather than just toss it away and bring something new into the house? My kind of rule is I don't bring anything in the house unless I get rid of something. And if I can just repurpose what I have, then it's a win-win.
I hate throwing things away. I don't mind having a lot of extra crap. Like if you see behind me, I got a bunch of helmets on the shelf that are past their usable date. But I've given stuff away. And as a matter of fact, this Badlands suit, if it's working out good for me, I'm probably gonna clean my Olympian suit real well, put new DWR on it, and give it away. There's a forum on ADV Rider where you can give gear to veterans, and I'll probably give that suit to somebody. And someone will get a few years use out of it, if not longer, because it's in decent shape.
Right.
I can't stand throwing stuff out.
Yeah, I agree.
That's why I'd rather have like these boots. There was no reason why. If I could have got them repaired to keep you, and I've actually we're gluing the Velcro back on for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But
something I thought was really clever. I had this pair of Dainese boots that just up and died. I couldn't, they were done, and so then something I thought was really clever of them is they sewed 2 layers of Velcro on top of each other, so that when your first layer started to wear out and peel off, you could just yank it off, and there was another one right underneath it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. Like it happened. Like the tab started to peel off, and I looked down. I was like, wait, there's more Velcro under there. So I just yanked the tab off and went back to using them for another couple of years.
Oh yeah. Hey, a couple of more things I wanted to talk about before we split. One is we're running a contest right now. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, we're running a contest right now. Our friends at Starbright and Startron gave us some stuff to give away. So there's some Extreme Clean and some Bike Care and some Startron fuel additive. I've been using the Startron fuel additive for a really long time in the Le Mans and now in the KTM. It apparently does a good job of helping to reduce the amount of ethanol and any possibility of any water buildup in your fuel. So I add a ½ ounce to every 5 gallons when I fill up. So we're going to be giving this away. And how you win it is you've got to go onto Instagram. You got to follow us and then tag a friend in that post. And we will probably in a week and a half, we're going to randomly pick somebody to win that 3-piece set of StarTron and Starbite products, and I'll ship them out to you. So tell your friends, and we've got it on our Facebook page, and it's on Twitter, and it's on our Instagram page, but I'll put it up on the website as well. And the other thing that I found really interesting, did you see the latest news from Revzilla?
About Cycle Gear?
Yeah, but did
Yeah.
you,
Yeah, I did.
you read it?
Yeah, I read Anthony's little letter.
Yeah, so I'm kind of excited about this. At first, I was freaked out when I saw it, like Revzilla was going to turn into Cycle Gear. And again, for Jeff, Cycle Gear is a national chain that sells discount motorcycle gear. They have brands that they sell all over the place. You know, it's honestly, I like the fact that Cycle Gear exists, because if someone's going to go out and buy a brand new motorcycle and they've kind of blown their budget on the bike, they still will be able to go and buy, you know, decent gear at a really low price that'll be better than wearing nothing. Let's put it that way. Revzilla is a company that was started by 3 guys in Philadelphia, basically in their apartment, and then they had a little storefront. Now it's grown to this huge internet presence that has probably one of the coolest YouTube channels, where one of the owners, you know, he says, this is Revzilla, where you can watch, decide, and ride. And he does these great product videos and product breakdowns to the point where other companies have started to copy his format. But they signed a deal with Cycle Gear to start a separate company that'll be a holding company that'll hold both companies, and they're going to go into some sort of partnership. So we're looking to see what that's going to mean for the market. I'm hoping it turns into something similar to Peter Glenn, where you've got, you know, an online presence and stores where there's both a mix of really high quality gear and some discount gear as well.
Because it's always a crapshoot when you order something, especially clothing, and the fit is not quite right. Like Crash was talking about, you got that jacket, it's just not quite right. And you're going to drop $500. You want to make sure it's going to work, right?
Yeah. That's one thing I really have liked about Revzilla, is they go really far to make sure that you know what the fit should be like. You know, they give you all the information they can prior to you buying it. I mean, like I said, when in their videos, they'll tell you how tall, how heavy, how, you know, what size the guy is that's wearing it in that particular video, so that you can see him like, okay, well, he's a little bit, you know, bigger around than me, and he's wearing one size bigger than I do, you know, or whatever. You know, they really go the extra mile. And then when on their webpage too, like anytime anybody reviews it, they give you the option to say it was too big, too small, whatever. So they have like this sort of average, like aggregate of all the reviews of the gear that say, like, does it fit as advertised, or is it a little smaller than they advertise?
They do go out of their way, and they, you know, on every one of their product pages, they'll have also the manufacturer's fit chart embedded into the page, along with those reviews. And I like like Crash said, I like the fact in the video they'll say, here's so and so wearing this piece. He's 6'1", 230 pounds, and he's wearing this size. Yeah, it's something that I think there are people that go out there and do their deciding by watching Revzilla videos and may go buy it someplace else. You know.
Oh, really? Yeah.
They do ship for free over $39, so it's kind of good. But if you've got to return it, the shipping's on you. So to have it in the store would be nice. So I'm kind of hoping to see what happens between the two of them. I still think there's a place in the market for the discount gear, because there are just some people that can't afford to spend, you know, $1,500 to $2,000 for a helmet, jacket, boots, and gloves and pants. Where, you know, at a place like Cycle Gear would run sales on their adventure suit, where you would get. When my wife got her Tiger, I bought her an adventure suit there, with a helmet, gloves, and the suit for about $350.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing was missing were boots. So, you know, that's she's probably only used it twice, you know, and she definitely got her money out of it by the fact that I'm glad I didn't go pay $1,500 for the same stuff, you know. Well,
I think it's gonna pretty much wrap us up.
Hour, Crash, you got anything you want to talk about before we go?
I can't think of anything.
Jeff, one more time, tell us where we can find you.
Come to us at accidentalproductions.net, and you can find our podcasts. You can find links to where you can get our films. Again, we'll give you 50% off high gear with the promo code Cafe Racer. What we also have is a kind of a subsidiary company called What Now Productions, and that's on the website too. We work with a lot of people, adventurers who go on adventures and they shoot film, and they shoot these beautiful projects, and they don't know what to do with it when they're all said and done. And they come to us, and we look at it, and if we can feel like we can craft a story and there's a market for it, and we can get it into some festivals, then we partner up with folks and get their films out to market. There's a film on our website right now called West to the Sea about Dave Chamberlain, who ran across Canada unassisted, the first person ever to do it. And the filmmaker came to us with hours of footage and said, I got all this footage, what can I do with it? We've put that into a short film, and it's been in festivals around the world. It just won the People's Choice Award in a festival in Scotland. It's appeared on television throughout Europe. So it's one of those things where somebody just had a good idea and came to us and didn't know what to do, and we can help you take that film to the market and maybe push your career as filmmakers. But that's kind of what we're doing. We're out in the adventure world.
That's actually really cool. So
That is really cool.
Accidental Productions, check out High Gear. If you haven't seen it, it's really neat, especially if you like rock climbing. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Crash, take us out of here.
All right, so yeah, you can find us in all the usual places, CafeRacerPodcast.com, Facebook.com/CafeRacerPodcast. Instagram is Cafe Racer Podcast. Twitter is Cafe Racer Pod, because podcast is just too long. And I think that's about it. We'd really like to thank all of our supporters on Patreon. I want everybody to know that in like 2 days, I'm going to have stickers. So all you people, all like 3 of you, I know, all of you that have been waiting since the beginning, like this guy's been saying we're getting stickers. I haven't gotten any stickers. I have like 1,000 stickers from other manufacturers and stuff, and I'm finally going to have our stickers in a couple days. I'm getting married a couple days after that, so you're going to have to wait. But once I get them, we're mailing them out. I'm going to sit down and mail out stickers to our supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to be one of those supporters, go to patreon.com and look for Crash, Cafe Racer Podcast, Chris Ashmore, any of those, you'll find the show. And that goes a long way to help us pay for making all this stuff happen, you know, paying our bandwidth, whatever, everything. So,
Really appreciate it.
yeah, we actually have stickers. I've been saying that for like a year. Thanks again to Sean Wallace and Chris Shockley for the logo and the website. And thanks, Jeff, for coming on and talking to us.
Thank you, guys. It was fun.
All right, get out and ride.